All right guys, thank you for joining me. So I'm doing something a little bit different today, talking about one of my favourite subjects, which is hand grippers. It's probably a subject that we get the most questions about as well, to be honest. So I went out on Instagram and put like a little questions box on, and you guys have sent in, I think we've got around 30 questions about hand grippers to go through. So I'm literally just going to get stuck in and fly through these questions, and hopefully I can answer everything that you want to know about hand grippers. Will using hand grippers make my wrist thicker? No, I'm going to say no with that. I did a challenge where basically I used hand grippers every day for 30 days. I measured my wrist before and after, and I actually got smaller during the 30 days. So it's very unlikely. Your wrist is more down to your genetics with your bones. You might get a little bit of growth, you know, if you're brand new to grip, but no, hand grippers aren't going to make your wrist thicker. Will they make me a better thumb wrestler? Unfortunately not. Hand grippers give absolutely no benefit to thumb strength. Is setting cheating? No, setting is not cheating, and it's actually encouraged to sort of allow for a level playing field. It makes sure that everyone's closing this hand gripper from the same distance, so it just eradicates any different hand sizes or anything. My friend has a 200-pound hand gripper. I can close that, but I have another 200-pound hand gripper and it's way harder. I think this is probably going to link into another question, but basically different brands are going to have different ratings for certain poundages on hand grippers. That's why we rate all of ours using an RGC system, so we know exactly the force that we're closing. Best accessory movements to improve grippers. Anything that's sort of crush grip related. So your double overhand deadlifts, any axle bar, rolling handle, anything that you're sort of grabbing onto and squeezing is going to help that crush grip strength. This is where we usually recommend to like avoid using straps for as long as possible. Do a double overhand on your deadlifts instead of mixed grip. Easy things like that are going to aid your hand gripper strength. But the best thing to build your grippers is using grippers. Will they make my arm bigger? They're not going to make your bicep bigger, but they will make your forearm bigger. Due to sort of the nature of the motion of hand grippers, you're closing down. It's very forearm heavy. So you are going to be able to get a decent bit of forearm muscle on, especially if you're new to hand grippers. If you've been doing them for a long time, it's unlikely you're going to see any sort of noticeable growth as you'll have already gained it really. How can I move up from a 3.5 to a 4? I presume this is Captains of Crush. If you're managing to get a 3.5, you're doing something right already. So I'd probably just stick to that. But something that I always say is mix up your training. Don't stick to the same things. You've got to mix it up, do different variations, try holds for time, even inverted reps. Micro reps are one of my favorites to do. But it all depends on where you're struggling to close the hand gripper. So if you're struggling to finish the last bit, you want to do little micro reps. If you're struggling to get the close at the start, just basically practice quite a wide set, but not closing all the way. What is the little cube / block thingy for? That is for setting the hand gripper. So like we mentioned before, setting the hand gripper isn't cheating. It's to make sure that everyone's closing the hand gripper from the same distance. So you'd set the hand gripper, you'd put this through to show basically this is a 30mm width. You can then close the hand gripper, and this is what it's used for. Just basically showing that you're setting the hand gripper to a 30mm width before you're closing it. It hurts my hand when I use them. Yeah, hand grippers aren't the most pleasant thing to use, especially when you're going really heavy. This is why I think I prefer using thicker handle grippers. It just seems to cushion them a little bit more in your hand. Like the Essential series, for instance, it's 18.1mm the handles, so they are quite narrow and they do dig into your palm and your fingers a little bit. Whereas with the Elite hand grippers, these are 20mm, so it just sits that bit more comfortable in the fingers. But yeah, unfortunately do hurt. It's just part of the growth. How often do you train heavy or light? I don't really train light anymore. It's only really for recovery that I'm going to train light. So I might have, you know, a few little goes on the grip ring or the extensor bands. That's really where my light work comes in. My 2 gripper training sessions are always heavy. Which are best to start if I'm new? If you are brand new to strength training or anything like that, I'd recommend the adjustable hand gripper. Super easy to use, super low level, but it just gets you into it. And if you've already done a bit of strength training, you already think you're a little bit strong, either the essential hand grippers or the elite hand grippers. We have put little rating charts on both of those now that should give you a pretty good guide for what your current level is. So just check them out. What is the best gripper while driving? While I wouldn't recommend using a hand gripper while driving, we do actually see a lot of people using the grip rings, which are probably a little bit safer to use. You know, these are the number one accessory really. These are my favorite out of everything that we do. Grip rings are probably the most suited for if you were driving. Why are they so bloody hard? Yeah, hand grippers are very difficult. The best way to just progress at them is just getting stuck in. You'll notice massive improvements if you're consistent over even a couple of weeks. It's one of them where you've got to really put the work in on a consistent basis and you'll notice huge improvements. But if you stop training for a couple of weeks, it'll take you a couple of weeks to get back into it again. So just being consistent over a long period of time is going to help with that. What is your setting technique? I will insert a video here of my setting technique because I don't really have the time here to do it, but my technique's very easy. The bottom leg of the gripper will be split in my pinky finger. This leg of the gripper will be up on my ring finger. I'll then put my thumb in here and then pull it in to the width. I'll usually try and set deeper than I need to go and then open up to the width before closing it. How often do you train with grippers and what does a training session look like? At the moment, I will train 2 times a week with hand grippers, going pretty heavy on both days really. My favorite rep range is doing 5 sets of 2 reps. I'll usually start off at maybe 85% of my max and then I'll work up a little bit in each rep. So let's say, for example, my working sets start at 140 RGC. I'll then do 2 reps at that. If it feels all right, I'll go up to maybe 142 and I'll do 2 reps at that. If that still feels all right, I'll creep up a little bit more. If it's starting to feel difficult, then I'll tend to just stick to that range and do my 5 sets of 2. But that's pretty much what I do at the moment. I know usually we'd recommend, if you're quite new to hand grippers, you can train up to sort of 3 times a week, maybe do 2 days with volume and then 1 day as your active recovery day where you're just using maybe a grip ring and a light resistance gripper.